This tiny payment thing
It's a giant pain.
Hi, ladies.
Alex from US Bank. Can she help?
How about a comprehensive point-of-sale system?
that can track inventory, manage schedules.
And customize orders?
That's what US Bank Business Essentials is for.
What about a new oven? Can US Bank help us there?
We can serve loans in as fast as 12 minutes.
That would be a big help.
Huge.
Jumbo.
Ginormous.
Finding ways to make your business boom. That's what US Bank is for. We'll get there together.
Right there. Ah, that should do it.
Time to call WireNut.
Yep.
Call the experts in home repair. The WireNut Plumbing, Electric, and Air.
We're here to help small businesses play hard and win big in Colorado Springs, Olympic City, USA.
Thanks to our many partners, we are able to offer great tools.
Permit Partner is a new and easy way to navigate the permits, licenses, and fees needed to open or expand your business.
Accelerate COS is a brand new small business loan fund.
COS Open for Biz is a step-by-step roadmap for those just getting started.
Plus, our office can connect you with local, state, and federal resources.
We love all business, but small business is the backbone of our economy and makes us a more vibrant and interesting community.
We're grateful for every small business that chooses our city.
We look forward to helping you find success in Colorado Springs.
Kaiser Permanente is more than a health plan. We're an integrated healthcare system with care teams, hospitals, and health plans folded neatly into one convenient package. One of the most effective ways we can manage costs and deliver better health outcomes is by leveraging our integrated model to provide our members with the right care at the right place and at the right time. With the long-term savings we offer our customers, superior health outcomes, and convenient coordinated care, it's no wonder Kaiser Permanente is the preferred health plan for so many organizations nationwide.
First and foremost, thank you all for being here today. If you're watching online, you have no idea how cool this place really is. For those of you who are out here, please come check this place out on your own free time, because this is a locally owned, veteran-owned business. They were actually one of our finalists for our Small Business Week for veteran-owned business. So we just want to give a big thank you to iFly and our folks for hosting us here today. We are doing Small Business Week here in conjunction with the Southern Colorado of BBB and the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, and with my office, the Pikes Peak SBDC. So I just want to say thank you to our co-hosts and the folks that are helping put this event on today. So thank you so much. We have some really great workshops today, and we're going to kind of do it in tandem. So if you're on this side, you're going to get one. You're on this side, you're going to get the other, and then we're going to do a flip-flop. So we're going to flip through our speakers today. On this side, we have Dr. Joe Craig with the Economic Forum at UCCS. He has something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. He has done a lot of reports in the sports field, and so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say today. So thank you for being here. And then Catherine Keegan with the Colorado, I'm going to get it wrong here, so the Colorado Office of Future Work. I got to tell you guys, both of them are way above my pay grade. I have no idea what they're going to talk about. All I know is that when they talk about future stuff, I start thinking about like Tom Cruise movies and flying cars. That's all I know. So, but I want to thank you all for being here today. Please enjoy some food, enjoy the venue, and we're going to get started here. We're going to give our speakers a 5-minute warning as we get close to the flip time, but otherwise, thank you.
All right, is this working? Mic working? Yes, no? Okay, good. All right, sorry. So my name is Joe Craig. So first of all, I just want to tell you guys, if you have a question, just shout at me, okay? I'm used to teaching classes to students. They shout at me whether I tell them to or not. One of my favorite things about this is, and this is kind of a fun story just to get it started, the pictures here are old enough that one of my friend's ex-wives is actually in one of these photos. So I'm not going to tell you who she is, but every time I see these photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, we need some new photos here. So I'm an academic, so we start with a roadmap, right? Okay, we always had to give you a roadmap of where we're going, where we come from, what we're doing. So you guys are kind of getting the more 10,000-foot view from me. Catherine's going to give you the more detailed version. She's the future of work anyway, so I'm talking about it from large economic trends. But in order to do that, we're going to start about the general state of the economy. So, you know, kind of talking about general state of the economy in the U.S. and Colorado Springs as well, kind of in conjunction, because you can't understand one without understanding the other, right? Okay, we are kind of a bubble, you know, not a bubble, it's the wrong word, but like a microcosm of the economy as a whole, and we have unique attributes as a result of that. If the U.S. economy tanks, it's probably not going to be great for us either, okay? So, talking about sentiment, unemployment, population, of course, some interest rates, which are a hot topic right now. My favorite thing is when my students say things like, oh my God, interest rates are at record highs. They've never been this high. I was talking to my stepmom this weekend, and she's like, yeah, my first house was 17.5%. So I'm like, 6.5 is still kind of low, right, okay? At least historically thinking. Homes and trends, which are always a big topic in Colorado Springs. In fact, at our big event next fall, we're going to have a big piece on that. And then we'll talk about the labor force, kind of the current state of the labor force, some emerging trends. We're going to lean heavily on the World Economic Forum because, honestly, they're smarter than me. So mostly I'm going to give you what they're saying and kind of talk about it through the lens of Colorado Springs. Okay? So that's our roadmap of where we are and where we're headed. So consumer sentiment. I love to start with consumer sentiment. The reason I start with consumer sentiment is, you know, economists always say, I do this thing that's great in my intro class where I talk about if people believe prices are going to go up. Turns out if people believe prices are going to go up, guess what happens? They go up, right? Okay, it's like this magical pixie dust. You sprinkle it out there and it happens. So if consumers are happy, the economy is going to run pretty well, no matter what. I mean, really, they can override almost anything. If consumers think the economy's tanking, it's probably going to be horrible as well, right? Okay, this is why you always see, what do economists always say? Every time you hear a report of an economist, what are they usually saying? What do you guys think? Do they say, oh, the sky is falling, or what do they usually say? Even if the sky is falling, what are they saying? Don't panic, it's not so bad, right? Okay, why do we say that? Because if you panic, guess what? It is real bad, right? There's no way out of that, okay? So sentiment is largely what drives the economy. So this comes from the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment. It also has our preliminary May numbers, so it usually takes about a month delay. So you can see pre-COVID, we were riding pretty high, right, okay? And then COVID happened, that's the gray bar on there, and right down. Then we had a little blip. We're like, oh, everything's good. It's rosy again, and then back down. The upside is it does appear as if, let's see, no, I don't have that. It does appear that we're in a trend up right now, okay, which is good news, okay? Even with other things happening, high interest rates, consumer sentiment's pretty high. Spending continues to be high as well. Consumers are still spending a lot of money. Now, part of that was coming out of COVID, everyone was like, oh my God, I want to buy everything, right? Okay. It sucked, COVID, I couldn't do anything. And also, the government threw a lot of money at people, especially the upper middle class. The upper middle class didn't need that money. It's still a good move when the economy is tanking to throw money at everyone and hope that someone spends it. But they didn't need that money. So they were like, when they came out of COVID, they said, let's just spend it all, okay? That's kind of run out. Now they're doing it fueled by running up that credit card bill. We'll see how that works long term, but at least in the short term, it's keeping consumer sentiment pretty high. So that's the rosy view. That's good, right? Okay, consumer sentiment is rising. Unemployment. Unemployment is extremely low, right? Okay. You guys probably have a good idea about that. Small business owners, it's hard to hire people right now. Okay. Why is it hard to hire people? Because there's no one unemployed, right? Okay. So you have to hire someone away from another business. That's much more challenging. Okay. So if we look at these rates, this is the April 2023 numbers. U.S. 3.1%, Colorado 2.4%, and El Paso County 2.5%. That is insanely low historically. That is ridiculously low. We'd usually say that's below what we call the natural rate of unemployment, okay? So economists, you might say, why would economists say that, that there should be a natural rate of unemployment? Okay, if I get laid off tomorrow, I can go get a job at McDonald's immediately. That's probably not the best use of my time, right, okay? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe that's all I'm qualified for other than being a professor. But hopefully, I would sort into some job that's using my expertise, right? So you need to have some level of frictional unemployment to sort into the right job, hopefully long term. When it gets under 4%, we start saying, oh man, that's probably below the natural rate. Some economists say 3, some say 4, some say 3.5. But this is extremely low. So it's good that people have jobs. The bad news is as well that when you have unemployment this low, you guys probably know you're competing for employees, right? If you're competing for employees, what happens to their wages? Wages go up. If wages go up, that puts upwards pressure on prices. What is the Fed trying to do? Stop inflation, right? Okay. So this is counteracting what the Fed's trying to do with stopping inflation with raising interest rates, which is why we keep seeing the Fed keep interest rates high and or at least stable. Okay. And they might even raise them again one more time this year. I'm not sure about that. We'll see what the next couple months look like. I love it. It's an exciting time. Exciting can be panic inducing as well, right? Okay. But it certainly is an exciting time economically right now. Population trends. Okay, so this is the current state. So the current population, we say in El Paso County, is kind of in the sweet spot, okay? And what do I mean by that? So you look here, so if I was designing a great economy, I wouldn't want to have a lot of elderly people. I wouldn't want to have a lot of young people. Young people's fine, okay, but if it moves through in a bulge, it creates things like the baby boom, right, okay? We're dealing with that as they start to retire. That has bad effects down the road, right, okay? Not bad necessarily, but what you want is kind of this middle zone here. So we can see that for the U.S., well, first of all, the U.S. is an aging population. That's happening. We're actually getting birth rates that are below replacement levels, even after having influx of migration. The only really way to grow your economy at the end of the day, and economists have tried to find other ways, is you either have to be more productive or you have to have more people. That's kind of it, okay? So more people is one way to do it. More productive workers is another way, right? That's harder to manufacture. The upside is we've got a better sweet spot for El Paso County. So we look at that 25 to 39, 40 to 54, and 55 to 64 is pretty good, right, okay? Especially the 25 to 39. We also don't have as much in the 65 and over, right, okay? 65 and over is awesome, but that's not when you're the most productive of your life, right? Usually that age 40 to 55, and again, understand I'm an economist. I'm not speaking about you specifically, right, okay? So if someone's in that age range, I apologize in advance. I'm going to be there soon. I'm just saying that on average, that's your most productive, right, okay? That's when you're the busiest. That's when that's probably when you're having kids too. I always wonder about that, 40 to 55 is about your sweet spot for work. But it's also when your kids are like, oh my God, you're running around. I'm like, we timed that poorly, right? If we were designing a species, maybe we should move that around. Anyway, all right, I've got 3 daughters at home, so this is very pertinent to me right now. Let's see, trends, projections. Oh yeah, Adrian. Yeah. Shift industries. Mm-hmm.
Maybe create more jobs that are geared towards those ages.
Oh.
Versus staying home.
Yeah.
2.1%, I can't hire anybody. Well, you need to shift industry and
Oh, say so attract so like in migration, right? Okay, talking about in migration. Okay, yes. So there are ways to tilt that. So what would be a good way? I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to make sure I'm answering your question the right way. There are ways to attract certain types of jobs. So specifically in those age ranges, we're finding that younger people are less concerned with wage, right, okay, than previous generations. It's kind of a weird generational thing. Less concerned with wage. It turns out they actually want more criticism. So my generation is like the generation that wants to be told we're doing a good job, right, okay? So you have to give me, what's it called, like the compliment Oreo. I give you a compliment, then I tell you all the things you did wrong, then I give you another compliment. My generation likes that. The one below me actually wants harsh criticism, right, okay? So that's one thing, but that's not shifting industries. What you can do is try to find jobs that give them meaning or fulfillment, right, okay? We're finding the younger generation wants to be fulfilled, wants to be doing something useful. Not necessarily environmentally friendly, but useful, right, okay? That's much more important than wage was to the previous generations. So shifting to industries that have mission statements, which I think a lot of you guys have seen already. A lot of industries have moved towards more mission statements, things like that. That's certainly a way to target it. Does that get at your question? I'm not sure it answered it. I did the typical PhD thing where I answered something you didn't actually ask. Yeah. So trends, right? Okay, so this is for El Paso County. I apologize for the colors; they're not perfect. So first of all, we're going to be over 1 million by 2050, right? Okay, that's crazy to me, right? Okay, that Colorado Springs or El Paso County, which is mostly Colorado Springs, but not entirely, right? But El Paso County is going to be over 1 million people by 2050. That's what we're projecting right now. That's a growth of 34% over the next 18 years. Now, again, that's not per year, right? That's just the total growth rate, okay? It's not massive. So the bad is the population of 65 to 110 is expected to rise 50% in that time period. Again, not very productive people, okay, on average. The good, the population age 30 to 49 is expected to rise 57%, which is that sweet spot, okay? So that's the good news, yeah. Absolutely. Also, I think there's a copy of this downstairs if you want to take it with you. And if you email me, jcraig2@uccs.edu, I'll send you the whole thing. So, yeah, okay. And I have a plug at the end if you want to get more data on this stuff. So, yeah. Thanks for asking. Sometimes my students record stuff, and I'm like, yes, but you have to record the whole thing, right, okay? Because at least right now we're in the generation where a professor says something offhand, and then I'm fired, right, okay? So we think tenure is useful, but apparently it's not. Yeah. Interest rates, okay, not coming down, right, okay? So I always start with that. Interest rates aren't coming down. The Fed is likely to keep raising interest rates or at least keep them steady. I wouldn't be surprised to see another 25 basis points by the end of this year. The reason I'm saying that is inflation is coming down, but probably not as quickly as they'd want to, especially after last month. In addition, we talked about that labor market being so hot. I think it's going to keep upwards pressure on prices even with the Fed hammering those interest rates, okay? So, we're seeing prime up around 8%, the Fed funds rate 4.83, and 30-year mortgage rate 6.28, right? They're high, right? Okay, they move, well, high at least. The upside is they are very high if you're looking from 2010 on, right? Okay, this is the hard part I have telling some of my students too. I was like, you guys are born in the golden age. The Great Recession was not really that bad, right? Okay, like if you look in a historical context, it wasn't that bad, and that's the only thing they can remember. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying it's not that bad. So interest rates are going to stay high. I don't know what to say about that. Affordable homes. This used to be like the bell cow of Colorado Springs. Like, we have affordable homes, move to Colorado Springs. Anyone bought a house recently? Yeah, not so much anymore, right? Oh, God, no. Anyway, so the upside is if you're a cash buyer, now's the time to buy. Okay, so I'll just tell you guys that. If that's your market, now's the time to buy because a loan and the home are complementary goods, right? The price of the loan has gone way up. Demand for the homes have gone way down. Ceteris paribus, which is the econ way of saying holding all else constant. And as a result, now would be the time to buy because you face less competition there. So one thing I always tell people is that we have a huge military population in Colorado Springs and a retired population as well. Military on average has more wealth than the average human being, okay? Which means you can take a job that pays you less per year so the house doesn't look affordable because you have wealth backing you up. My example of this is I have 2 instructors in my Department of Economics. We pay them so much less than they're worth. But they're retired from the Air Force. They're pulling in a pension. They're like, this is great. I get to teach students a couple days a week, right? So a lot of people have more wealth. This is always going to put upward pressure on prices. It does, however, crowd out lower income individuals that make up a large portion of the accommodation and food sector, which supplies a lot of the high earning individuals in the mid-range. So you can look here. At least we're not as unaffordable as San Francisco. That's the good news, right? Okay. The bad news is we're actually less affordable than Boulder currently. Now you might be like, there's no way Boulder homes are pricier. Correct. But what else happens in Boulder? Do they make more or less money than we do on average? More, a lot more, right? Okay. Now that may flip at some point, but at least right now we are actually less affordable than Boulder, less affordable than Austin, and less affordable than Denver in terms of the wage, right? Okay. At least for getting houses. Okay. That's tough, especially if you're trying to bring in that younger demographic to build people, which is why affordable homes are a huge issue right now, and especially affordable housing that are non-homes as well. We need that build right now is a little underbuilt. Local home sales. So we always talk about this. You can see a general trend down. Of course, it has seasonal peaks up and down. This is number of homes, new and existing home sales data. And you can see they're bouncing back as we'd expect seasonally, and we'll see how that goes, right? Okay. Obviously, there's some huge peaks in there because interest rates were insanely low. A lot of people had a lot of cash trying to do things like that. We can see, so this is crazy to me, the median existing single-family home price in the first quarter of 2023. So for the United States, that's $371,000. That's all of the U.S. That includes the rich, the poor, everything. So, sometimes, I hear my father-in-law sometimes say, oh, the young kids, they should just buy a house. I bought a house when I was then, but he's thinking about a house that even at that price probably was around $100,000. Looking at trying to buy a house now, if you're a college student that just graduated, it's $371,000. That's quite a bit, right? Okay, it makes for challenges there. Boise's $440, Denver $636, Colorado Springs $444,000 is the median existing home price sale. It's pretty high. Makes me really happy. I bought my house about 8 years ago, right? Okay, so sorry, you're buying it. I don't think it's going to go down. On the upside is there might be a little trough, but I think you're okay long run. Okay, it's good property out here. Thank you for raising your hand earlier. You can see all of these are a decrease over last year, but last year was when the market was crazy. Do you remember all those things? People were buying homes 20% more than asking, cash with no inspection. I was like, oh my God, that's how you sold your house? Good job, right? Okay, so that's the time to sell your house. The only problem is if you sell the house then, you have to buy someplace. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh, great. That was the great part. I bought a Kia Telluride, right before COVID happened, and then they keep trying to buy it back for more than it's worth or for more than, what I owe on it. And I'm like, yeah, but I have to buy something else. This is the problem. That's great, but I have to buy something else. All right, where are you at here? Overall affordability. It's expensive to be here, okay, in Colorado Springs. That's the long and short of it, okay? So what we have here is the 2022 quarter 3 average annual wages for all industries. We actually have numbers for the fourth quarter for Colorado Springs and El Paso, but the U.S. releases tomorrow, okay? So that's why I didn't update it to the third quarter. That doesn't come out until tomorrow. But this is the annual wages. So we're 8% lower than U.S. and 14.7% lower than Colorado wages. Okay. Now again, we have that military wealth, but that means it's hard to make a living here potentially, especially with home prices being high. Let's see. The big thing here is that we have the federal poverty level, but we have the minimum wage and living wage in El Paso County. So we have minimum wage gets you $28,392 a year. Let's throw that out. That's not a large portion of our population, at least not right now. As you guys probably know, how many people are hiring close to minimum wage right now? I can tell you I am, but only because it moved up so fast. We had student workers, and I was like, oh, crap, we're under minimum wage. We're actually in violation of state policy. And I was like, oh, crap, and we gave everyone a raise. So annual wages, just barely enough to cover living wage for 2 working adults with 2 children. So over here, we've got some, so let me walk through this. So the living wage for households with 1 adult and 2 children is $102,000. That's what it takes if you're a household with 1 adult and 2 children, okay? That's a lot of money, right? If your living wage for households with 2 adults, 2 working, and 2 children, it's $55,000. And you might be like, why is that lower? Remember, that's times 2, right? That's per adult. So that'd be $110 total. Living wage households with 2 adults, 1 working, $85,000, right? Okay. So I guess, I like to say that think about this when you're thinking about people trying to move here, right? Okay. It's expensive to be here. Okay. I don't know how that's helping you guys yet, but we'll talk about it. Okay, GDP and recession and answer. I'm actually not going to give you an answer. Sorry, I've lied to you, right? Okay, I did the typical thing. The answer is we don't know. So the positive, consumer sentiment, right? Okay, that's a positive, right? Okay, it's not as high as it was pre-COVID, but it's still pretty high, okay? GDP is still growing. It's funny, we usually count 2 consecutive quarters of GDP falling as a recession, but not always. It's actually decided by a group of 8 people in a room that say, we're in a recession, right, okay? It's shocking that that's how it's decided. They do a pretty good job. The negative, we had a global pandemic. I mean, really, the fact that we had a very short blip of a recession during a global pandemic with governments just throwing money at people is shocking to me. So I always tell people, like, if you would have told me that we wouldn't have had a recession by 2023, I would have been like, you're an idiot. Of course we are. There's no way out of this. I've been very impressed with the Federal Reserve policy to get out of this. I'm not saying they can hold it up forever, but I am saying they're doing a pretty good job right now. The negative, global pandemic, interest rates rising, less so the bank failure now. That can be a very acute problem, right, okay? Incites a panic, not so much right now, right, okay? People seem to have stabilized. The neutral is employment. It's good that people have jobs, right, okay? It's bad that it's creating upward pressure on wages. The answer is we don't know. So a typical economist answer, I don't know if a recession is coming. My favorite joke is economists have predicted 4 out of the last 2 recessions, right, okay? So we're like, we're going into recession, and then it doesn't happen, so. All right. Local jobs, a little more interesting. So I'm going to move to the stuff about local jobs and kind of the future of work, okay? So these are the top rising sectors of need as indicated by rising wages. So these are rising wages are transport and warehouse, or 97.5% rising, sorry, this is as indicated by rising employment. Sorry, that's a typo. I found my first typo in here. There are probably more. But the big industries that have had a big rise are transport and warehouse, obviously with Amazon coming in, okay. Professional and technical services, which is great, those are high earners. Also health and social assistance, that's that's gonna be a hot commodity for a very long time. My partner's a nurse and she tells me consistently that, yeah, nurses are huge. The upside is construction's ticking back up. That's good news for our local economy, okay. That wasn't in the top 4 last time I did this. I wanna move on though, because I don't wanna fall behind too far. Local jobs. So even with unemployment coming up, we still only have a quarter of a person available per job. Actually less than a quarter. So we had 45,301 job openings last month. Some of these are repeats, right? Okay, so maybe a little bit of double counting. Our total unemployed were less than 10,000. Okay, that means there's 0.21 worker available per job opening. That's crazy. So if you're having trouble hiring, this is why, right, okay? Moreover, you're gonna have to pay them more than you would otherwise, or find something else that they want instead, okay? And hopefully that's what I get to, at least in terms of creative thinking going forward. The Great Resignation. So we talk about, you guys have heard about the Great Resignation. So this is kind of thinking about what we're doing going forward. COVID accelerated everything. So what I can say is that economists have been predicting like kind of the 4th industrial revolution for a very long time, right? Which is where AI starts taking over, people wanna work from home, all this stuff. It happened faster than we thought, right? Okay, COVID really sped all that stuff up. Also jumps in AI, that's happening right now. It increased the use of technology to work from home. This is an opportunity. That's at least how I think about it. If you can find a way, so we're finding that more and more workers will give up wages to have flexible work schedules, which sucks, right, okay, because we're used to doing it one way, okay? But especially as a small business owner, if you can find a way to give them that, you have an advantage and you can actually pay them less in salary, right, okay? So you can get savings there at least. It's challenging, but I guess what I always say is whenever you see a market disruption, if you think of it as an opportunity instead of just being destruction, that's gonna help you move forward as a small business owner, okay? It also altered preferences, I think. So I really think that and there is some data to support this, is that people just thought they had to work. What you have to do is you just have to work. That's what you have to do. You work 40 hours a week, you work 50 weeks a year, you work till you're 65 and you stop, right, okay? COVID, everyone started working from home and they said, huh, I might be able to make this work. Now, part of why they were being able to make this work is the government was throwing money at them. If we have a recession, that might tilt, right, okay? And we actually are seeing higher labor force participation, so people may already be starting to go back to work more than they were or trying to look for jobs. But it does mean that people have different preferences. So if you can give them more flexibility again, they're more likely to work for you. Any technological revolution displaces workers. What's somewhat unique about this technological revolution is we have to retrain, reskill everyone, right? Every technological revolution before this disproportionately affected the poor. Right, okay? It was always like the people working in the fields, people working factories, that sort of stuff. This one's gonna displace white collar work, right, okay? So like accounting, probably a thing of the past in 30 years. It stinks, but if that's what you're doing. I mean, heck, I tell medical professionals, nursing is a much more stable profession going forward than being a doctor. It really is. Why? Because as it is, a lot of surgeons are already using machines and things like that. It's not long before the machine just takes over completely. And there's just a doctor saying, yeah, good job, right, okay? But the soft skills that you need, interacting with human beings, nurses will always be there. People don't want to talk to a robot, right, okay? We just don't, right? Maybe we'll get there in 30 or 40 years. I'm skeptical, right? Okay, I'm not sure we're gonna have a robot that can actually fully mimic a human, but I don't know. Some of the ChatGPT stuff is pretty scary. So there it goes. Any questions, by the way, as we're moving along? Cool. All right. So churn. So this is the stuff that comes from the World Economic Forum. So their prediction is that we're going to create 69 million jobs in the next 5 years. We're going to lose 83 million. So that's a net loss, right? Okay. So we're going to lose jobs in the next 5 years. This has happened a lot quicker. So these are jobs lost, jobs, stable jobs, and jobs created, right? Okay. So you can see, and each square is 1 million jobs. Okay. So we're going to have a net loss of jobs in the next 5 years. Yes, we'll get there. Right, okay. Good, great question. I'll answer that in a minute. Okay, so that is a wonderful question. Sorry, I'll get to that. The thing here is that 23% of jobs will churn, net loss of 14 million jobs. So let's move on, right? Okay, let's get to the more exciting thing. These are just industries that will see churn. So these are industries that see a lot of churn, not necessarily losses, but we'll get to the specifics of losses and gains here in a little bit. Okay, it's a little small, it's hard to read, but again, you have the slides there. You can take it with you or I can give it to you. So these are ones that will see churn. The big ones that are going to see churn are media, government, IT, real estate, and financial services. Financial services are definitely going to be a big loss here, right? Okay, because you can hire an AI chatbot to figure out a better algorithm for your financial services than probably the best finance advisor you're ever going to see. This is why I'm very glad that as an economist, I'm a PhD professor now, because my background is econometric work, which is basically data analysis, and I'm like, oh, I'm very glad I have tenure now, because that machine's going to be way better than I am in about 20 years, okay? Maybe faster. Low ones are, of course, accommodation and food services, automotive and aero, manufacturing, and energy and materials. Not going to see a lot of churn, we think, in the next 5 years. This is just 5 years. Longer term, I think we'll see churn with all of these industries. So you can see health and healthcare is down there too. I don't know how much you guys can read here, but yeah, health and healthcare is down here. Education and training is kind of middle. Supply chain and transportation, yeah, kind of in the middle as well for churn. All right, gains and losses. So I think this is exactly what you want to see. So gains, number one there, AI and machine learning specialists. Yeah, not surprising, right? Okay, huge bump up there. Sustainability specialists. So this is kind of what I was talking about this kind of green wave that you might think. I love this because as an economist, I've always said, command and control by a government never works, right? Okay, if you tell people you got to be green, it's not going to work. But if there's demand for green jobs, that's what actually drives like anything that could affect climate change. But anyway, that's beside the point. Business intelligence analysts, information security analysts, fintech engineers, data analysts and scientists. So the upside is I'm a data analyst in science. It's going to be good for the next 5 or 10 years, and then I think it'll go sideways, right? Okay. Agricultural, there's some other things there. Big losses. I've highlighted a few here. Accountants and auditors, massive losses in the next 5 years. Social media strategists, massive losses. ChatGPT is going to do a better job of your social media in the next 5 years than probably anyone you've hired. Claims adjusters, examiners, and investigators, credit and loan officers are going by the wayside. Statistical, finance, and insurance clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll clerks, those are some of the ones I highlighted. And again, I wanted to show you that these are some of the things that jobs that we thought were safe, higher earning, white collar jobs, right, okay, are kind of going by the wayside. Also in there, you know, paralegalists and legal assistants, social work and counseling professionals, also a loss, which surprises me a little bit, but yeah, yeah.
I guess the question or concern is, I'm going to use the accountants, for example.
Yeah.
So many technical laws and loopholes that have to be done to make sure your books are right,
Mm-hmm.
you're, keeping records, et cetera,
Yep.
et cetera. How's that going to affect me as a small business owner if I no longer have access to an accountant? Is it all going to be automated?
Yep. Yeah. So I mean that's the idea there. So I mean, say what?
Just repeat the question. Because we're recording.
Oh yeah. What was it? Sorry. Can you repeat the question here? Sorry. Yeah, there you go. I'll give you the mic.
Thank you. The question is for in the class of accountants, how's that going to affect a small business owner like myself? Because the accountant is the person who knows the loopholes or the rules we have to follow.
So my thought would be an AI is going to do it better than they did, right? Okay, and find it faster. So I was actually talking to my partner's husband the other day, and he works in the military right now. And one of his things that he mostly does is he goes through all the conflicting regulations, kind of like an accountant, finds out which ones really refer, which ones are stronger, if he should do it or not. And he's like, oh my God, when the government finally allows me to shove in all these regulations into an AI and say, what are the results? He's like, it's going to be, I'll just be done. they're the loopholes. Everyone will know what all of them are, and they'll just be there. They'll be much easier to find that way. My hope is, as a small business owner, it will actually help you. There'll be a slight period where it'll kind of stink, in my opinion, because you're losing that person that you trusted and knew what was going on, and now you're like, oh, I hope the machine figures it out, right? Okay, but what I think you'll see in the short to medium is that there will still be a human backing that up, right? Okay, so it just may not be the personal relationship you had. So the human will, instead of overseeing, like, let's say 10 businesses, they'll oversee 100, right? Okay, and then if something goes sideways, you go like, I need to call you, right? Okay, I need to talk to a human. That's my guess. Okay, so I can't say for sure, but that's my guess. Yeah. Yeah, of course, material recording and stock keeping clerks is going by the wayside, but that shouldn't surprise anyone. Okay. Gains by totals. So I have my shameless plug here. University and higher education teachers is actually a big gain. So okay, so I had to throw that in there. Okay, that's the highlighted one. However, not in our country. So the big gains here are in outside G20 countries. So I was actually talking to Beth the other day. I was like, hey, do you want to do half the year in Paraguay? That could be kind of fun, right? Okay, so like I'm going to be in a hot commodity down there. Other gains by totals, big gains in agricultural equipment operators. So apparently we can't AI that yet. I think it will be AI'd at some point, but not yet. Heavy truck and bus drivers, still big gains. This is still, a lot of it's in the developing world. So remember, these are world totals, not necessarily US totals. So a lot of those things are being done in the developing world. They're further away on AI than we are, right, okay? So if you are a bus driver, maybe time to move to a third world country, right, okay? That's probably where you're headed. Social jobs. Okay, so I've highlighted the United States of America. So this is my last piece, is that there's going to be a reskilling and a higher demand for social skills, like, social skills, what we're talking about, but interaction with humans. As we'll see later, the things businesses are demanding now are not hard skills. Like, what they want is, can you work as a team? Can you communicate with people? Can you creatively problem solve? Because AI is going to do everything else better than you can, right, okay? But it's going to be a long time before AI can do that. And I've read a couple of books on AI. We're really not to artificial intelligence. What we are is machine learning, which is very different, but looks like artificial intelligence, right? Okay, because it's really good at it. We're a long way, well, we don't know how far we are away from AI. It needs to be a big jump. Anyway, the United States of America, social jobs are in care, education, and health. There are going to be some gains there. Less in education, right? This is why my shameless plug's not really true, right? Okay, in the U.S., okay. But health, huge ones there, and care as well. And we're looking at positive versus negative on these things. So, skill, yeah. Yeah, yep. They are, yeah. So, yeah, that is very true. So the U.S. has an aging population. Yeah, so we have an aging population. It requires more care as we get that age. And also those people want interactions with humans and can afford it, right? Okay, so we have a higher income. Also, I saw last year that our life expectancy is continuing to fall, right, okay, which is kind of surprising. When you compare us to developed nations, we're not great at that. The hypothesis there is that we're really good at finding medications. We're not good at doing the things that help keep us healthy our whole life, which is exercise, get outside. Luckily, Colorado kicked butts and take name there, right, okay? Colorado's a huge outlier on this one. I was seeing, I think, compared to Alabama, I think we have like a 15-year longer life expectancy on average than someone that's born in Alabama. So Colorado's the kind of outlier there. So locally speaking, we're pretty good there, but we still need a lot of help, right? Okay, so yeah. Also, we have a lot of injuries because we have a lot of military population and a lot of active people. That's what I've noticed as well. There's a lot of injuries in Colorado Springs, but not major injuries. Oh, I think I answered your question, and hopefully it got picked up. Hopefully you projected enough, but skills disruption. So this is just, we've got the core skills, which will change in the next 5 years, core skills, which will remain the same in the next 5 years. You can see that, so really what we saw here is kind of I'd say kind of a flat to downward trend, which means that we have more skills needing to be changed in the next 5 years. We're kind of speeding up. But this is kind of where the COVID accelerated, and now we're kind of regressing to the mean. I think there's still a general downward trend there, which basically means that we're going to have to reskill more often. Like, if we're looking at this stuff, I think we're going to have to reskill as a society more often than we did in the past, which kind of stinks because it's hard to reskill. It's very hard to change your skill set, especially as you age. The upside is, we were talking earlier about how this disruption is going to disproportionately affect white-collar workers. Usually they have more education to begin with, which means they're also easier able to reskill than a blue-collar worker, on average. Not always, but on average. Skills on the right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Would this also mean that because of the skills disruption, people are going to be more of a jack of all trades versus more niche?
I think so, actually. Well, especially for small business owners, yeah. If you have a jack of all trades, I actually just read a fascinating book called Range. Okay, so shameless plug here, but the book called Range was talking about how this over-specialization actually makes you way worse at problem solving, and we need to get out of that over-specialization. Of course, we still need like heart surgeons and stuff like that with high specialties. Although interestingly, they found that during a conference for heart surgeons, outcomes for patients with heart issues were higher, but in every other city except where the conference was. So basically, when they took the heart surgeons away, the outcomes were actually better for all the patients in the cities that were left there. So basically, it's the same idea. Like, you know, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's what they were finding with the heart specialists. They just always did a stint, always cut in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so all right. Sorry, speed up a little bit. That's good. I'd rather have to go too fast than too slow. So skills on the rise. Creative thinking, number one, right, okay? I keep saying that to my students. It's hard to actually say what creative or critical thinking is. I'm working really hard to make my class harder, which is kind of weird. I've started even doing things where I don't give my students the answers ever. Like, I'll give them a test, they'll be like, what'd I get? I'll be like, 75, what'd I get wrong? Not telling you, right, okay? It turns out that actually makes you learn and think harder, right, okay? You don't have the short, they hate it, by the way. My students are livid with me every time I do this. Analytical thinking. Technological literacy, curiosity and lifelong learning, resilience, flexibility, agility. Look at it, these are all soft skills, right, okay? Then finally, AI and big data. It's on there, but it's number 6, okay? Motivation and self-awareness, talent management, right, okay? These are all soft skills. These are the skills that are heavily in demand right now. We got some other things down here, but that's what I was, empathy and active listening. Like, that's crazy to me, right, okay? Like, when I was growing up, they're like, learn data. Oh, okay, you know, like you don't have to be able to talk to anyone. Nah, it's not the way it is anymore. So those are huge skills that are on the rise right now. Reskilling. So these are things that need to be reskilled because we're not doing it well right now, okay? So I've kind of highlighted them by groups. Up top there are cognitive skills, which are analytical thinking and creative thinking. We need to reskill that. Basically, what I'm learning from this is we have done a crap job in higher education or in our education system of actually teaching our students to do this. We have not done this well, so we're gonna have to do it now, right, okay? It's heavily in demand and we gotta figure out a way to do this. Hard skills, you know, we've got AI and big data and technological literacy. That one I'm less concerned about, really, as an economist, but those soft skills I'm really worried about if we can get that going right. Oh man, that looked better before I did this. The other ones are, oh, what were they? I highlighted them a terrible one. Now I can't even read them. Curiosity and motion, whatever, we'll move on. Okay, so you just chalk that one up to me screwing that one up. All right. Here's the interesting part, and this is bad for me. Formal education doesn't affect skills. So this is how much you can learn to find these. So based on your level of formal education. So this comes from like Cognos and that sort of stuff where they actually train people to do new things. It turns out that your ability to learn new skills isn't much affected by how much higher education you've had, okay? Not good for me as an educator at higher ed, although again, I see it as an opportunity because we got to do a better job of teaching people like lifelong learning, which again means that what I'm teaching in the classroom I think is actually kind of crap. What I need to learn is how to teach you to think, right? We always say that and then we never do it. Then we give them a test with 100 questions and say, oh, you got a 92. And so like, I'm trying to move away from that. May not help you guys as much. This is the soft skills prioritization though, which there's a huge move in priority to try to do soft skills. Self-efficacy, working with others, and ethics. So these are by sector, but you can see that every single one of them has a huge priority on these skills. So these are the skills that employers are looking for right now. You know, and they need to reskill. They're saying we need to reskill these people. They're not doing it right. You guys probably know if you're trying to hire people, you probably keep saying, oh, it's not the right person. Oh, it's not the right person. Yes, there are people applying, but they're not the right person. It's very hard to find people with these skills, and we're not doing a good job of churning them out right now, so we need to reskill them. I don't have an answer for how to do that. But if you guys have an answer, let me know. So barriers to transformation. So what's going to cause us problems with getting people to the right area? Skills gaps in the local labor market. Yet again, it's skills. 1 minute, thank you. Okay, so yet again, it's skills there. Inability to attract talent. Again, you guys know this, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. Outdated or inflexible regulatory framework. That's something we can work on. That being said, I think it's hard to change government policy, whether it's the right, the left, the middle, whatever. And then shortage of investment capital and insufficient understanding of opportunities. So biggest issues are skill gaps, labor shortage, and regulatory framework. Those are our biggest issues with moving forward. Let's see, how many do I have left? Okay, I can kind of get through this. Let's talk retention. So this is trying to retain people. What's going to be effective in retaining skills and laborers? And the biggest one here is provide effective reskilling and upskilling. So, and the second one is better articulate business purpose and impact. So those are kind of the things we talked about. I will wrap it up with question and answer, which we don't have time for, but you guys asked along the way. And here's my little shameless thing. We have the Economic Forum, we have benefits for our members, and we have a huge event on September 7th. It's free this year, please attend. I'll be talking up front. We'll also have some other people and some breakout groups. So that's my thing there. Cool.
Thank you, thank you.
Whatever, just so you guys know.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I don't know what I changed, but I'll just hold it close to my mouth. So, okay. Hi, everyone. I am Catherine Keegan. I'm the director for the Office of the Future of Work with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. So I'm here today to talk about what the office does, but mostly what the future of work looks like for us and how we're paying attention to it. So I'm going to go over a few different trends and some of the things that are shaping the work we're doing at the state. But to start, I'd love to just hear when you hear the term future of work, what comes to mind? Yeah, robots. Everything's going to change. Anything else? I would say, yeah, these are all great. Okay, I'm going to hopefully give you some answers on what jobs or really what skills your kids should have and what we should all be thinking about. So, yeah, the future of work means a lot of different things to different people. And what we see is, what we try to do is take a very holistic approach to the term and to the work. So we know it's not one thing, but it's this combination of forces that are shaping the jobs that are available, the skills needed to do those jobs, and who is available to do that work. So we look at the combination of globalization, market forces, demographic changes, and then of course technology on those things. And so that's how I've kind of organized the presentation, and I'll go through each of those. I am not an economist, and I'm going through very complex topics at a very high level, so I'm by no means claim that this is comprehensive, but just some of the key things that we're looking at. And I welcome any ideas or feedback or what you guys are paying attention to as well. So just starting with globalization and market forces, one of the big things that we've been paying attention to is how interconnected the world is. Do I need to move over this way? All right. Okay, that way it won't blind me. So we know that the world has become increasingly interconnected really since the 80s, and it's accelerated even with the pandemic. The internet allowed e-commerce to thrive, though it disrupted global supply chains for a bit. Those are on track to return, and we've just seen how that outsourcing, that globalization has impacted different workers differently. In particular, we see that a lot of individuals who were in customer support, manufacturing, and related functions faced a lot of disruption in their roles or were completely displaced as a result of globalization. And this is a trend that's been underway for a long time. One of the things I'll really hit on throughout this presentation is the fact that a lot of the same people in roles have continued to bear the brunt of pretty much every disruption. And that's creating some of the challenges that we're seeing today. So one of the impacts of globalization and just the market forces that we've seen across the last few decades is that we have this proliferation of low-wage work. So we know that many people are working. In 2017, Colorado, by all accounts, had this amazing economy with record low unemployment, but it didn't really tell the whole story. What we knew then in 2017 was that across the United States, you had about 53 million workers who were working, but were in a low-wage job. In Colorado metro areas, that was anywhere from 40 to 47% of the workforce that was working in a low-wage job. And not only were that many people working in a low-wage job, but that was, except for in Grand Junction, a pretty intense increase in the percentage of low-wage workers from the previous 10 years. At the same time, for the most part, wages decreased. we know that low-wage workers were more likely to be on the front lines and in those professions and in those roles that were disrupted by the economic disruptions of the pandemic. And so we had a huge chunk of our workforce that was struggling with getting by, and then we experienced the pandemic and the disruptions there, creating an increased pressure for those workers. And a lot of the conversation coming out of the pandemic and in general is how do we transition low-wage workers into high-wage jobs? And I think that's definitely the right question to be asking. We know that many entry-level roles are low-wage, and that is fine, that makes sense, but we don't want it to become the only option for folks. And what I think is really important as we consider transitions is understanding how hard those transitions really are. So we know that for every 4 years someone was in a low-wage job, their likelihood of exiting low-wage work decreased by half. And by the 10th year in a low-wage job, you had less than 1% chance of ever having a high-paying job. So while the right question to ask is, what do those transitions look like? But understanding how hard those are, I think, is really where the work is going to lead, because we need to figure out how to make it less challenging and more viable for people to exit low-wage work. Another trend we're paying attention to, in addition to the low-wage work piece, is the growth of the independent workforce. So this is from Upwork in their Freelance Forward report. We've seen that really since 2014, there's been an increase in the number of people who are choosing freelance work, independent contractor work, as part of their career. And some people are doing it full-time, whether they're a full-time Lyft or Uber driver, DoorDash delivery driver, or if they're like a freelance consultant, communications professional, what have you. We're seeing more and more people use independent contract and freelance work to build their careers. We have other people that are doing it because maybe they're in a low-wage job and they need to supplement their income. We have others who maybe require more flexible hours and arrangements because of caretaking needs. So people are choosing independent contractor work, and that's a relatively new phenomenon in the sense of its scale. And so that's something that we're looking at in terms of how we support individuals in those arrangements. So that's my very quick overview of market forces and globalization, just some of the key things that we're looking at. And then if we get into who is doing that work, we see that Colorado, just like the rest of the United States, is aging quite rapidly. We have a significant portion of our labor force that is already over the age of 55, and that's only growing. We are expecting very high retirement rates that are going to impact our workforce, and also that people are working longer. So we have 5 generations in the workforce, requiring different ways of thinking about how we leverage experience and pair that with incoming talent. At the same time, our younger generations are more diverse than ever. We know that our systems, whether it's higher ed, K-12, and even our workforce system, often has we have disparate outcomes depending if you're white or if you're a person of color. And so we are really looking to examine those systems and see how do we make sure that we're connecting individuals in our systems in Colorado to success, and reconfiguring those where we haven't designed them and haven't seen outcomes for success before. And this is really critical because we literally do not have enough workers in this country for the jobs that are available. We don't have enough workers in Colorado for the jobs that are available because of the retirement rates, because of the declining birth rates, and then because of the low labor force participation rates for some segments of our populations. And we need everyone. We need everyone who can and wants to work to be able to work. And so we have to think differently about how we engage talent. And one of the key ways we can do that is really consider these untapped or hidden talent pools that we haven't had to necessarily engage before, because we were able to find talent through more traditional recruitment methods. This one report was looking at the number of hidden workers in our economy across the US. They found about 27.4 million people who make up this hidden workforce, representing a wide variety of life experiences. And what we see is that, some people are missing hours. Maybe they work part-time and they could work full-time if there were some flexibilities around childcare or caring for a parent. You have others that are missing from work who are long-term unemployed or very long-term unemployed. We know that the longer you're out of work, the harder it is to get back into work. And then you have others who are missing from the workforce. So you have inactive folks, retired folks that maybe would engage in the workforce if they found the right opportunity. And so what this is really showing us is that we need to have different strategies to recruit talent, to bring people in to industries they may never have considered or seen, and to think about different work arrangements and flexibilities that we haven't had to consider before because we haven't had workforce shortages like this before. So that's a lot of the questions that we're asking is how do we support businesses and thinking differently about that talent recruitment and designing a work environment that's supportive for all workers. And then you get into, I think, the number one thing people think about when they hear future of work is technological transformation. So we pay attention to really 3 key technologies. One is automation, so looking at technology that replaces routine, non-cognitive tasks. It's most often used to augment labor and not completely displace an entire role, but to make that human more efficient by replacing some of those tasks. Then you have artificial intelligence, which is computer systems that are able to do things that previously required human intelligence. So very good for like process management, decision making, analysis, all of those pieces, very much on the mind, I think, of everyone with ChatGPT on the forefront. And then we have digitalization. So this really, I think, refers to kind of the daily disruption of digital tools. The digital tools we use for GPS, to order groceries, to get food delivered, to send an email, to meet virtually. All of these digital tools that are sort of invading our lives that are really required for us to be able to operate in society. So these are the 3 technologies, overarching technologies that we're really looking at to understand how the economy got to where it is today and what we might need in terms of skills moving forward. And so we've seen how AI adoption across large, medium, and small firms has increased since 2017. McKinsey does a great State of AI report that I read every year, and I encourage others to just understand how corporations across the world are looking at technology. And we've seen that though there's been like some pullbacks, that generally there's been increased AI adoption in at least one business unit in a company. I think one of the interesting things about this report that this doesn't show, though, is that when a company adopts artificial intelligence for even one business unit, other jobs that aren't directly related to that technology change. They found that job postings in a company that adopted AI require more tech skills, even if you're in a communications role or a supportive role. And so already that's reshaping skills in general that are required for work. And so we expect that to continue for sure. One of the big, I think, things that has been studied more really is automation's impact on work. So as I mentioned, automation typically is used to replace tasks that are routine and non-cognitive. And what this is showing is hiring based on the types of tasks in your role since the 80s. So we've seen how non-routine cognitive roles continue to be in demand. We see how routine roles, whether they're cognitive or manual, are sort of stagnating or decreasing. And then non-routine manual, which is harder for technology to do because it's non-routine, are increasing slightly, but at a much lower rate than non-routine cognitive. So we see how technology has already shaped jobs and hiring trends for the last few decades. This, I think, was one of the biggest reports related to automation and started a lot of the conversations about automation's role in the economy in 2017. What they were looking at was the percentage of tasks within an industry that technology could do at that moment. Doesn't mean every employer across the board in each of these industries was adopting technology, but it was just trying to understand, based on the roles in those industries, how much technology could replace the tasks. So if you see on the far left, maybe some of you can't see, but it's accommodation and food services. You have 73% of the tasks automation could do. You have manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, retail, other services on this left end, where you have a significant portion or a majority of the tasks that technology could do. On the far right, you have those that are less threatened for complete displacement, but you still have a significant impact in my view. So educational services, 27% of the tasks in educational services, technology could do. Professional services, technical services, IT, management, healthcare, government, you have 37% down to that 27%. So the two questions I think that are important to consider is, one, looking at the industries here, many of them are low-wage jobs. Many of them were the same industries that were impacted by globalization. And you see that there's a potential for huge impact. So how do we focus on those workers and those businesses in these industries to support them in adopting technology and transitioning workers where it's needed? And then on the right end, how do we focus on using technology to its fullest potential and reducing the amount of human labor that's needed? So we leave room for the human skills that are required in each of these jobs, but we use technology to be more efficient, to reduce that overall workforce that's needed, because we don't have enough workers. So how do we get creative about using technology to help solve that problem? And so looking back, and just part of the reason why we have this proliferation of low-wage work is in large part because of technology and the role it's played in the economy. So we've seen that people without a 4-year college degree or higher were more likely to be in roles that were disrupted as a result of technology. And the impact of that is very real for their wages. So over the last 40 years, we've seen how people with less than a 4-year college degree saw significant wage decreases in their percentage change in hourly wages across the board. And while we previously thought that was mostly because of globalization, new analyses have shown that that's really because of the introduction of automation. And part of what why that occurs is because what we've seen is as technology is adopted in a workplace, it often takes the roles that were held by people who did not have a higher education degree. And those roles, technology replaced and basically became part of the role of managers, professionals, and technicians. So all of these workers in the middle here are displaced, unemployed because their job, went away. They're forced to compete for these low-wage jobs that haven't been displaced, but are challenging to fill. And so when you have a huge influx of workers competing for these jobs, it drives down wages further. So you have this, what we call the polarization of our labor market, where you have people that continue to thrive that are in these other roles, and then, again, proliferation of low-wage work. I think what's really interesting and some of the consternation around ChatGPT is that it is looking at some of the skills that are required in those roles that were previously untouched by technology. And so we have a lot to wrestle with and a lot to think about in terms of, one, how we value skills from low-wage jobs, and recognize that the takeaway from the previous slide in this whole presentation is not that, everyone needs a 4-year college degree, that's how we solve it, but really thinking about the specific skills that are required in the jobs and where people get those and how people can learn on the job as well. Another piece I think that's really interesting and is part of the conversation around technology is that even while technology does displace workers, it also creates many new jobs. There is a bit of an imbalance where it's not going to create enough new jobs to completely even out the equation, but we see that there is more and more, where there's innovation, there's more new jobs created that didn't exist before. So again, those transitions are a key part of it. Something that this report I think is quite interesting because it basically looked at census data from the 1940s through 2018, because on the census you write down your job. And so you're able to look at job titles and how much they have changed and what new jobs were created based on that. So they accounted for like spelling differences or different words for the same role over the years. And they were able to see that in which industries new work was created. And you see that for those where technology was invested in and where we saw more and more, on this one, where we see the technological advancements kind of being added to the roles of those individuals, we've also seen more innovation and more investment. So new work follows that innovation and follows that technological advancement. While we don't see the same innovation in those industries that are more low wage or more challenging to automate. And so that's one of the questions that we're wrestling with moving forward, is how do we spur innovation and technological adoption in those industries that the market doesn't necessarily incentivize those disruptions in. And so going from that to thinking just about digitalization in general, we know that digital skills, just basic digital skills, are required across the board. I always like to ask if you could raise your hand if you had to learn a new digital skill in the last 6 months. In the last year? Okay, we got a couple. So we know that the half-life of tech skills is about 5 years, and it's almost getting faster as technology continues to evolve. And so across every industry, you have to have that sort of lifelong learning mindset. Each of us individually has to think, how am I going to keep abreast of all of the technological innovations so that I can be the most efficient in my job and understand the tools that are being required in the workplace. National Skills Coalition looked recently at across all industries, which ones require digital skills, and they found that 92% of jobs required digital skills of some kind. Even looking a few years ago, we've seen dramatic increases in digitalization scores across metro areas. What that's really looking at is you have a higher digitalization score if roles in your local economy require digital skills as a key part of the job. And so we've seen those increases pretty consistently across Colorado metro areas. But we know there are huge gaps. So looking at the existing workforce, we see that in construction, for example, up to 50% of people in those roles have limited or no digital skills. In education, you have 15% with limited or no digital skills. So we know that as technology continues to evolve and be able to use technology to its fullest potential, we have to be able to embed digital skill development in every job, in our education system, and really make that an expectation for our own learning. And while we may have assumptions about who has digital skills and who doesn't in terms of age, we see that there are significant gaps. So while you have more gaps in older workers, we also know that younger people are able to use technology for like a specific purpose, whether that's social media or for their learning, but the ability to translate that into the workplace, to apply digital skills in different contexts, or what we call digital resilience, is lacking. We also know that cybersecurity is a huge issue across the board, and especially in younger generations that are exposed to more technology without a lot of the protections. So we have huge gaps, and we know that this is critical for people to succeed in the workplace and for businesses to be able to thrive. The maximum use of technology is going to kind of make or break us moving forward. So with all that, what does it mean to be future ready? The work of the office is to identify programs and policies that build a future ready workforce. And so we believe that, every Coloradan, every individual needs these new foundational skills of a digital economy. This pie chart comes from an analysis of millions and millions of job profiles, where they were seeking to understand which types of workers with which skills were able to weather economic disruptions better. So they looked at tens of millions of job profiles over different recessions and different experiences. And what they found was that individuals in their job profiles who could demonstrate each of these skills were more likely to be able to manage those transitions. And those individuals who didn't have these on their job profiles struggled or floundered more. They found that only 1/5 of the workers that they looked at were able to demonstrate these skills. So what I think is especially important, despite talking about digital skills for so long, is the importance of human skills paired with that. You can't have digital skills alone. It has to be paired with the human skills that are uniquely human, that technology cannot or will not replace. Things like creativity, communication, emotional intelligence, collaboration, analysis. You have to be able to pair that with digital tools and data so that you can apply those to business with those business enablers. So it's that unique combination, human skills, digital building blocks, in the business context to meet the task at hand that makes people more resilient in their careers. And so considering how we communicate these skills, where we can build these skills, and if I'm an employer, how I'm asking about these skills in my job postings and in the interview process. Another way of looking at it is building T-shaped workers. So that top of the T is that those foundational skills, and the bottom of the T really becomes that occupational expertise. So the top of the T allows you to transition as maybe your industry changes or disappears or evolves, and then you build that occupational expertise and you apply these foundational skills to it. So that's what we're focused on, and we're thinking about how do we ensure that every program that we fund, that we build, is really supporting the creation of these future-ready workers at whatever age. And so I wish I could say we had all of the answers. Mostly I think we come up with a lot of questions that we're really trying to address, and I'd love to share them with you as you're thinking about your own future of work. We know that the low-wage workforce is a huge part of our economy, and that there are tons of people with amazing skills. I always joke that I think the skills I use every day are from my low-wage jobs, and I said over there, but there was a Red Sox fan over there, and now I feel bad, but I worked at the Panera across the street from Fenway, and it was a very intense job, and it made me not like the Red Sox, but also gave me a lot of great customer service experience that I definitely use every day. So how do we maximize that skill transfer to other pathways and make transitions from low-wage work viable for more people? How do we maximize the use of technology to reduce human labor where it's unsafe, unnecessary, and where technology can do it, so that we use human labor for to its fullest potential? How do we build programs that give people the lifelong learning mindset and those future-ready skills? And then we're really thinking about how we redesign our education and training systems to be really business-led, because we know that the sort of systems that have existed for years and years are not necessarily meeting business needs and the talent that they need. And then kind of across the board, how do we close the digital divide so that everyone can fully participate safely in a digital economy? And so for the Office of the Future of Work, we know we're building those future-ready workers, thinking about how we create those viable pathways out of low-wage work, create ways to tap into those untapped talent pools, and develop sustainable and strategic talent pipelines, and that's what shaped our key initiatives. So the two big things that we do in the Office of the Future of Work is we oversee the state apprenticeship agency. We believe registered apprenticeship is one way to help build future-ready workers and engage business to build the talent that they need, because it allows people to earn that paycheck from day one, to engage in the education through related instruction, but also build the skills that are required for that business to meet their bottom line. So we're actually in the process of taking over regulation of apprenticeship from the feds. July 1, that'll move to the Office of the Future of Work, which will hopefully allow us to be a lot more nimble and address the needs that businesses have to explore apprenticeship, and if it's the right fit for them. We also lead the state's digital equity, literacy, and inclusion initiative, which is focused on digital skills, devices, and affordable access to the internet in partnership with the Broadband Office. So if any of those piqued your interest, I would be happy to chat, and we'd love to be able to learn more about what you guys are seeing on the ground. We're also going to be starting some different research projects about small business digital transformation that we'd love your feedback on. But I have a few other slides that you can check out with more details about each of these initiatives, but I'm almost out of time, and happy to answer any questions.
We want to thank you so much for attending here. Wooglands is our coffee and food sponsor today. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Dr. Joe. You guys were amazing. Awesome data. If you guys want more information from them, please contact us, and we can get you more of their slides or any information that you need about the future of business. So thank you so much. Come on over, guys. Let's get this thing spun up, guys. Go for it.
Thank you.